The Miami Heat have a pretty big future-defining decision to make on Tyler Herro in October. No matter what they do, they must absolutely avoid making a complete disaster of it all. Giving Herro the full max contract extension that he's eligible for, 3 years, $150 million, would be exactly that. Tyler Herro at the max is a disaster for the Heat. Many may think this is a shot at Herro, and it's not. Listen, Herro is a very good player. I don't think anyone would argue with that. He made the jump to all-star status this past season and put together his best year to date. But just because Herro is an all-star caliber player at this point in his career doesn't mean he's the best-fitting star player for the Heat. The biggest reason that he's not is because Herro is the type of player that adds value as a third or fourth piece, not necessarily as a number 1 or 2. And that's where the Heat find themselves. They don't have a clear number 1 option. Bam Adebayo is a really good player in his own right, but he's not a number 1 option that Miami could easily build around. Because of that, that's forced Herro into a role that has hurt him more than it's helped him. That's not Herro's fault, but it's certainly something he must deal with. If the Heat had a clear superstar as a number 1 option, the conversation would be very different. Herro as a number 3 option behind a superstar and Bam, and this team would very much be in the championship conversation. That's simply not the case. It will force Miami to make a very difficult decision, one that would make it an utter disaster for the Heat to give Herro a max contract extension. Heat need to find their number 1. There may be a way the Heat can sign Herro to a team-friendly extension, one that wouldn't paralyze this team's financial flexibility heading into the future, but I can't imagine that happening in October. Not after Herro put together an all-star campaign. That's probably the reason it's in the best interest of both Heat and Herro to play the long game and kick the can of a contract extension until next summer. Without a clear number 1 option on their roster, it would be a huge mistake for Miami to burn all of its financial assets on Herro. One of the worst sins in the modern NBA game is paying a player max money who simply doesn't reflect the value to warrant it. That's exactly what the Heat would be doing by giving Herro a huge contract before the start of the season. External expectations for the Miami Heat are, how shall I put this, about as uninspiring as they can get. The quick read from the outside of this club is that it won't be great, but also won't be brutally bad. In other words, it'll once again get stuck in the association's dreaded midsection. Not good enough to contend, not bad enough to get great draft lottery odds. And, apparently, this oversight isn't just a team-specific thing, either. ESPN's Chris Herring and Kevin Pelton recently ranked the 14 newcomers they're most eager to watch during the upcoming season, and only slotted new Heat swingman Norman Powell into the number 9 spot, trailing the likes of, among others, Nuggets forward Cameron Johnson, Lakers center DeAndre Ayton, and Knicks coach Mike Brown. The article references how Johnson produces at a similar rate to his predecessor, Michael Porter Jr., notes how Ayton was bought out by the 46-loss Trail Blazers, and somehow fails to mention that Brown was fired by the Kings last season. Yet, all three are more worth watching than Powell, who was the second leading scorer on the 5th-seeded Clippers and still cost the Heat almost literally nothing to get. Come on. Sleeping on the Heat is almost always a regrettable move. Look, there are legitimate reasons folks are sleeping on Miami, but there hasn't been enough said about the Heat's chances to surprise everyone. Again, while they've failed to advance beyond the first round of the playoffs the past 2 seasons, they still have 3 Eastern Conference trips and 2 treks to the NBA Finals to show for the past 6 seasons. Exceeding expectations is sort of what they do. And while Jimmy Butler played a vital role in that success, so too did Bam Adebayo, Tyler Herro, and best-in-the-business head coach Erik Spoelstra. Miami still plays the same brand of relentless defense that propelled those lengthy playoff runs, and its offense could be sharper with the improvements made to this roster. Which brings things back to Powell. Even if you aren't a believer in the Heat, you have to admit that turning Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love into Powell was a masterful front office move. Powell put himself into the All-Star conversation last season. 21.8 points on 48.4/41.8/80.4 shooting, and he looks like a hand-in-glove fit for this group as an efficient play finisher and tireless worker. And, again, the cost to get him was less of a clearance price than the final days of a going-out-of-business liquidation sale. This wasn't turning the productive but overpaid Porter into the similarly productive but more reasonably compensated Johnson. It wasn't signing Ayton off the scrap heap and hoping for the best. It wasn't circling around to Brown after seemingly having no direction, or at least no realistic plan for the search to find Tom Thibodeau's replacement. This was a genuine heist on the Heat's behalf, and they deserve more credit for it. Then again, at this point it's sadly not surprising to see folks underselling this franchise. Here's to hoping those same folks are comfortable eating crow, because that might be on the menu if Miami outperforms expectations thanks in no small part to the wildly discounted deal for Powell. The Miami Heat's biggest question heading into the season is depth in the frontcourt. Size and athleticism remain a need, and forward/center Kai Jones looked like a potential answer. For now, though, that possibility will have to wait. Jones has signed with Anadolu Efes in Turkey for the upcoming season. His deal is expected to include an NBA out clause in January, which could open the door for an NBA return if the right opportunity presents itself. At 6'11", Jones is still young and brimming with athletic upside. Last season, he split time between the LA Clippers and Dallas Mavericks, appearing in 40 games. He averaged 5.0 points and 3.1 rebounds in just under 12 minutes per game, showing flashes of energy and versatility in limited minutes, especially in Dallas where he averaged 11.4 ppg and 6.6 rpg in 21 minutes. While his role in the NBA has yet to fully materialize, his physical tools and mobility at his size are exactly the type of qualities the Heat could use. Miami already got a closer look at Jones this offseason, bringing him in for a workout. The fit makes sense. The Heat don't have a surplus of long, athletic bigs, and Jones could provide rim protection, rebounding, and transition speed that the current roster lacks. His stint with Anadolu Efes should also serve as an important stretch of development, giving him steady minutes in a competitive European league and a chance to refine his game. From the Heat's perspective, patience is key. A minimum contract for Jones in January would not only address a positional need, but also keep Miami under the luxury tax, something Pat Riley emphasized as a priority in his end-of-season press conference. That financial flexibility is important, especially for a team that still believes its current group deserves time to prove itself before considering bigger moves. So, while Jones won't be donning a Heat jersey in October, his name is worth circling for the new year. Miami has time to evaluate its roster, see how the season develops, and then potentially add a low-risk, high-upside piece right when Jones could be available again. For now, the Heat's frontcourt remains a question mark, but Kai Jones shouldn't be written off. His journey through Europe might be the best thing for his long-term growth, and if Miami is watching closely, it could eventually benefit them too.